When you hop online and begin to consume other people's photography, you see things like this, and this, and this. And then you can jump right into a greatest hits loop, just scrolling and looking through all of the curated photos that people want you to see. And then you go and do the same thing. You post your greatest hits and the world goes round. And that's all fine and well because art has always been this way. But today, we have so much access to consume literally anything at any time, and we also have the opportunity to go out and make our own things. The problem starts to become when you see the greatest hits and then you think about your work, which you see it all. You see your greatest hits and you see your flops, and then you begin to compare that to the greatest hits reel that's literally everywhere on everyone's feed. Well, today I want to give you just a quick behind the scenes look at a roll of film, 36 shots from a photo walk in San Francisco on just a normal afternoon. It would have been very easy to curate like the top 5 to 10 photos from this, and that would be a really high hit rate, by the way. But it would be really easy to just curate those and post them on my Instagram today and move on. But on my Instagram, you can also see all 36 of these. Now, being a Bay Area photographer, I love getting together with other photographers and doing photo walks around the city or just around the area in general, and this Sunday afternoon was no different. We met up at Harland Records, we all met each other and said hi, and then we began to hit our path, which would take us through Chinatown and up to North Beach. For this meetup, I took my Leica M6 with a 21 on there. There's a 28 on there right now, but that's not the lens I was using. I was using a 21 that has not been announced yet, and I can't talk about it, but it's pretty cool, and you'll be able to see the photos from it, and one day in the future, when this lens does come out, I will refer everybody back to this video. It's always my philosophy that if a lens looks good on film, it's gonna look great on digital. Inside the M6 was a pretty special roll of film. Now, I've got a friend overseas who owns a film lab, and he also happened to be the photographer for The Brutalist. If you're not familiar with Bensie's work, there's a link right below to his Instagram, and prepare to have your mind blown because he is so freaking fantastic. When he came to California a couple of months ago, he brought a really big bag of film, and inside there was some really special expired cinema film. There was some 100T, but the one that I decided to shoot in San Francisco was a roll of Fuji 500D, and it happens to be leftover film from the movie Die Hard. Not the original Die Hard, that would be pretty epic, but we're talking about Die Hard 5. And this is a 500D film, but I metered it at 125 to make up for how expired it was. So let's go ahead and take a look at the photos. As I was walking from the parking deck to meet the group at Harland Records, I passed some shoes on the sidewalk, and my first shot were these shoes. I always love a photo that just makes me wonder what I'm looking at, and a pair of shoes abandoned on the street seemed interesting, so I took this photo, nothing special. Inside the dimly lit bar, I grabbed a photo of one of the attendees, testing my hand at like 1/8 of a second, didn't work. Anytime I go out on a shoot, my photography is like a mix of capturing like what's happening in that moment, as well as trying to compose things that I think are interesting. This was a capture the moment scenario as our group circled up so that we could introduce ourselves to one another and then head out on a walk. As we started walking towards Chinatown, we passed this table with these guys just all hanging out, eating some ice cream, and you don't really see dudes hanging out on the street eating ice cream, so I figured what the heck, and I just popped this one off at the hip. Not quite in focus, and I think I had the shutter too slow. Even though we started the photo walk in the late afternoon, the sun was already getting blocked by buildings, but yet there were a few moments where the sun could peek through, and this shot I thought looked pretty cool with the color scheme there. Nothing special. I was really curious about the halation of this Fuji 500D, and when I saw the sun reflecting off this window, I popped off a shot. Again, just a burn shot, nothing special. As we passed the Far East Cafe, the guy standing out in front looked pretty interesting, and so I took this photo, but at 21, it's really nothing special. You're probably noticing a theme now. Most of these photos are not special. Now there's a camera shop in Chinatown, and the light was hitting it in like the sliver in the middle, so I stepped up and grabbed this photo. I liked the subject, but the photo, nothing special. I thought this woman was dressed cool, and I just took this photo from the hip on a 21, nothing special. There was a group of photographers standing right outside of the camera store, and I snapped off this photo, but on 21, you can't see any detail. Again, nothing special. Okay, I really like this one because of the experience, but the photo is just okay. I was walking by this woman and she was raising up her camera to take a selfie, and I just turned and took a photo of myself in her selfie. She smiled, she was cool with it. I wish it would have been like a 28 or a 35, because then you would actually be able to maybe see what's going on here without having to have the explanation, but I still think this is a keeper for me just because I enjoyed that moment. And that was pretty bold for me as someone that doesn't really get close to people or try to like get in anybody's personal space. One of the photographers on the photo walk with us had a Polaroid camera and he was taking our photos and having us sign them. I thought that was pretty cool. Here are a couple of photos that he grabbed. One is of Wayne Serrano from Leica SF. And then of course, I'm in the other shot. I asked him to hold them up and I grabbed this photo. It's special, but only to me. This photo was all about just lines and shapes and geometry, and it's difficult to always get that thing perfectly lined up in the rangefinder and not seeing through a 21 lens, because the rangefinder doesn't see 21 and I was just kind of guessing what was there. You know, overall, it does have geometry, but it's nothing special. So in photography, there's this concept of hunting and fishing. Hunting is when you go out looking for a photo. Fishing is when you see an opportunity and you just kind of stay there and wait. This photo is definitely a fishing shot. You might not be able to tell from the background, but Chinatown just wasn't crowded on this afternoon. There weren't a lot of people there. So the group just like kept walking and I stood here waiting for somebody to walk by, and it happened to be someone that actually is dressed pretty interesting. So to me, this is a photo I like. I would probably have this one in a carousel that I would share, but what would have made it so much better is if I would have captured her looking in my direction rather than looking sideways, but I don't mind that she's looking at the sign even though she's not looking at the sign. You know, it was tough because I was watching her walk towards me. I was trying to wait until she got like as close to the sign as possible, but as she did, she just looked to the side. And again, I'm on 21 and I was hoping she wasn't this big in the photo. So it worked out. This next shot, big fluffy white dog, nothing special. As we were walking, we passed this wall that had a mirror on it. So I took a selfie in the mirror. I'm not even centered in it, nothing special. One thing I enjoy about Chinatown is the laundry on the upper stories of the buildings, and so we had some laundry up here, but again, it's just nothing special. So in a similar theme as the shoes, they had these half mannequins out on the street selling pants. I just thought it looked like an interesting scene. I took this photo. Again, I might have put this one in a carousel to share, maybe. Ultimately, it's nothing special. We passed a shop with a lot of sunglasses and I thought it might be cool to try to take a selfie in the reflection of the sunglasses, and I thought it'd be really cool if I could be in a lot of them. So I walked up, tried to make this work, and you know, it worked. I'm in the glasses, it's not as cool as I thought it would be. As we passed an alley in Chinatown, there was some activity, and after not really seeing any activity, I was like, ooh, there's people, but this is just a pointless photo. As we got into North Beach, there's some really cool vintage signs, and then there was a little sunlight as well. And so I might share this one because this just feels like North Beach. It feels like San Francisco life with the guys on the scooters and of course the electric cars. But I would only add this photo into like a carousel because it just gives a little context. And I do like vintage signs. So when I saw this one, I grabbed this photo, but again, this is nothing special. Now I missed this opportunity as people were crossing the street. I kind of grabbed it too late at the end. All these people were dressed in an interesting way, and I, again, just kind of felt like it represented San Francisco, but I missed the shot, nothing special. Here's another attempt at a reflection. It didn't work at all. All you can see is me throwing up a peace sign. I'm actually not even really in the photo. I love it when it doesn't work. It's always encouraging. Now this is typically a busy pedestrian crossing area in North Beach, and I was like, you know, I'm gonna get down, I'm gonna try that 1/8 of a second again and see if I can get some motion blur on these people's legs as they cross. I got down, I grabbed this shot. I didn't know if it worked or not, and so on the next crossing, I did it again. Neither one of them looked that interesting or good. As we were walking, we came upon a band, and I was so excited to see some people doing something. I ran up and grabbed this photo of the bass player, and he turned his head away from me as I took the photo. Bad timing, nothing special. But I stayed there for a moment. I backed up and I got the beer in the shot as well. And of course, this extension cord, I actually thought those were cut off more, but I was on a 21, and as I've said like 4 or 5 times now, can't see 21 through the rangefinder, so just kind of guessing. But I also might include this one on a carousel just to say there was something actually going on somewhere in the city on this photo walk. I'm a big fan of lines and light and shadow all mixed up, and when we pass this spot here, you can see the lines and you can see the light and the shadows, and so I tried to square it up as best I could and grab a photo. And after I did, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be more interesting if there was a person passing through it? But no one was around until one of the guys in our group walked through it. And so I was like, I'm tired of waiting, and I got this shot. Now, I actually really like this shot here because it feels like San Francisco. It is a small parking lot behind white buildings with red accents, and this happens to be behind a church. Everybody's parked in there as best they can, and we've got shadow and light. So again, shadow, light, lines, I like those things, and so I grabbed this shot, and I would probably share this in a reel or carousel. And I would share this one too because this one also feels kind of like San Francisco. And not in like a make fun of somebody way, but San Francisco is an incredibly diverse city. I mean, the whole Bay Area is incredibly diverse. And I purely believe that this person made their best attempt at writing reading glasses on this box. Plus, you can get like 6 reading glasses for $10 or maybe that's $11. Either way, that feels like a win in this economy. My favorite photo of the day is this one right here, because as I was walking, there was this just urban cowboy dude standing at the corner of Grant and Green, and he's just smoking and hanging out and just doing him on the sidewalk. And as I approached him, I snapped off this shot just from the hip. And then I asked him if I could just take his portrait right there, and so he exhaled and I snapped this off. And then I thought to myself, I wonder if the smoke blocked his face. So I said, hey, let me grab one more. This next photo is a better shot, I think. But honestly, he was my shot of the day. On that same corner was this old car, and it was just front lit by the sun. The rest was in the shadows. I grabbed this photo. You know, if it was like a vintage sign or an older building, I think it would look really cool. But for this context, it's nothing special to me. And it was at that point that I turned the lever one last time and it locked, telling me the roll of film was over. So I'd like to believe, maybe I have a 10% hit rate on this roll of film, which is 3.6 photos. But ultimately, what you see people post online is after this process. It's after you get the best stuff you like, and then you can put it out there. And so if you're ever in a position where you're thinking, oh man, my photography sucks. No, you just haven't seen everything on the back end. And I'm probably not telling you something you don't already know, but for me, there's something about just like knowing that we are kind of all sharing a level playing field in the fact that not everything we do is awesome, even though everything we typically show is what we believe to be awesome. And what really matters at the end of the day isn't the list of hits or misses, but the process of going out and being a photographer. All right, guys, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this behind the scenes look at all the stuff that just doesn't work out. If I'm wrong about any of the photos in here, maybe they resonated with you, or the ones that I like you think suck, just let me know below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.